Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. I was thinking today about how Islam makes you a more mellow type of woman when you apply a lot of the principles. And that if you apply the Islamic principles in your life as a wife, you become more calm, less full of anxiety, and you become almost minimalistic because you don't really see luxury and refinement and ostentatious wealth as the end goal that's the end all be all. And I think because of the Islamic clothing standards for women, you also have less evil eye towards other women because you focus on your spirituality more, and because you're not constantly judging the bodies and the hair and the 70 pounds of makeup and the fake eyelashes and plastic surgery and all that, you're not looking at those people and thinking, I have to do that as well. And you don't feel compelled to do it. And you start to feel more comfortable in your natural state. And you focus a lot on your wudu and instead of your makeup, right? Because if you have all that makeup on and then you put water on your face, it's gonna mess it up. And you become just more comfortable and at ease and peaceful inside. And I'm American, 90s kid, and I can say that if I can compare the American way of unlimited freedom and then to the Islamic moral codes and edicts and standards and applying that, I would say that I am a lot more happy and steadfast and that my mental health has greatly improved. And it takes adjustments, but once you get into the habit of it, it becomes quite easy to adopt. And then once you adopt it and apply it, you start to see the fruits of it. And so I think some women just are so comfortable being Muslim, they don't really feel like they have to tell people how comfortable they are. But I think there's a great utility in reminding people that when you see someone in Islamic clothing, that doesn't mean there's some element of sadness and depression. I think it's a large misconception as well that every woman wants to be a plastic surgery Barbie, a clone of a Instagram OnlyFans thought. You know, that's very temporary. And if you look at the women who, like Anna Nicole Smith, gained weight, you look at how Miley Cyrus went really bizarre, and you look at how Britney Spears went insane. Amanda Bynes lost her beauty and looks absolutely terrible. A lot of child stars who got so much attention for being so pretty. And then they just kind of, from all that attention and all that criticism and that gaze of beauty standard judgment, they didn't do too well and their mental health suffered. Then you look at Joanne Rivers, who she hated her face so much that she just kept getting plastic surgery until she died, right? During a procedure. And her face looked horrible. And more now, we are seeing the effects of girls getting tons of plastic surgery. And how these filters with AI, plastic surgery, and makeup, and tons of different photo editing tools, it's a really fake image that you're looking at with these women, even in video. And these younger girls are getting very low self-esteems and getting body dysmorphia because they can't live up to this actually fake image. And then when you see these women in real life, they don't really look like that. And that's the fascinating thing about makeup, is that it makes up a whole new mask. And in Islam, your beauty is really reserved for your husband, and I appreciate that. And I think that's honorable, and it's absurd to expect women to be eye candy, pardon me, for strange men. And if you just look at the history of clothing and cultures, women in the past, especially Christians, were covered. But now they're not really covered anymore, and they hate how Muslim women dress because we remind their husbands of what modesty is and what classiness actually is. You can wear anything you want in your home and let your husband see it. Lingerie, you want to do all that? Go right ahead. You want to have all your high heels for your husband? For intimacy? Go ahead. But it's fascinating how the Christian man, if you look at the past, for example, follow me here, the popes were able to intermingle with militaries, declare wars, and encourage wars. And Catholics burned people at the stake. You look at the conquistadors, just the history of Catholicism and its military aspect, and how women had their role and men had their role. But today, the skirts get shorter. I mean, just think of the Catholic school uniform. How Britney Spears fetishized that. How Rihanna took clothing of nuns and mocked it. You know, Christianity isn't really respected because they kept becoming more and more liberal. And they get made fun of. Like in the Olympics, they got made fun of. They were upset. But they call Muslim women's clothing trash bags. But if you look at the history of how nuns and female saints were depicted, they looked exactly like an Orthodox nuns. They dress literally very similar. So you can't insult the Islamic dress code and then praise your own. Unless you're a radical feminist. They hate both. But then rad femmes, they shave their heads, put in very ugly piercings, you know, have eyebrows 2 different colors. I have tattoos, but they get sleeves, like, a lot, and it's a bit excessive. And so you see different types of body alteration and mutilation, splitting their tongues. You see all kinds of crazy stuff. And you're told that's okay, but if you just wear loose clothing, as in the Muslim garb, and go about your day getting your groceries, somehow you're an extremist and you're backwards and you're primitive. It's really strange. It's really strange. A lot of people think being civilized means spending a lot of money on brand name clothes and dressing in a way that men can fantasize about. What I really think it is that some women get threatened by women breaking free from this kind of Playboy bunny expectation, and men are getting mad that they have less lust magnets around them because they just sit and glance and drink up all the hedonistic debauchery of a lot of the modern women, how they dress pretty much like prostitutes. So when they see a woman who's covered, I think it enrages them because they've been denied access. They can pretend that it's all about assimilation, but why do they not grab nuns and throw them on the ground and say, you can't dress like that? You have a Buddhist woman, sometimes they shave their heads and wear that orange robe. Why are they not harassed? But it's always the Muslim woman who's told, you know, you have to wear tight jeans, you have to show cleavage, you have to show your figure. You're not allowed to cover your hair. But on the cover of Vogue, a woman will cover her hair and that's fashion. So no matter which way you look at it, there's always an attack on the Muslim wife and the Muslim mother because they love their husbands for the sake of Allah. They like having children, and most of them are not materialistic. I'm not talking about liberal feminist Muslimas, because that's a whole type of category in and of itself. I'm talking about women who try to be as orthodox as possible. And so, for me, when I sit down and I reflect deeply and extensively on how Islam has benefited my life, I realize there's so many women in America who would benefit from an Islamic mindset and Islamic lifestyle. And so I have hope, and I pray that those women, they can investigate more into Islam. Because if you have a combative and impulsive personality, you need a strong moral code to help calm you down and soothe you. Otherwise, you're just going to have a clenched jaw filled with anxiety and high blood pressure. There are a lot of competing philosophies out there in the world. But to me, Islam has had the most impact upon my life. And I've studied extensively a lot of different creeds of life. A lot of researched and read a lot of different lifestyle codes and all that. And if you're familiar with my past, I've read a lot about Buddhism, been around a lot of Mormons, studied with Jehovah's Witnesses, like one-on-one tutoring, and I've been to Catholic Mass, and more and more and more could go on. But Islam is the one that has helped me, and I think Islam works with very strong-minded individuals. I think a lot of us American women have been so free that we come almost feral. And Islam helps us to not become feral, but domesticated and calmed down. And so many women have this inner energy and they don't know where to apply it. And Islam, because you pray 5 times a day, it really centers you. And when you cut off the kind of witchy occultic aura that surrounds you when you expose your body, because you become a sort of Jezebel hedonistic icon and magnet, you're soothed. It's really quite fascinating. For me, the best way I could describe it is like a dog that has their hairs, when they get angry and the hairs stand up on their back and they're just super tense and they're just ferocious. I feel like Islam gives you the spirituality where you're just calm, collected, and relaxed by the river. If you compare those 2 dogs that are tense and then one that is just calm and accepting life. Islam gives you the strength to go on and helps you to cope with stress in a more healthy way. And when you have Tawheed and you really do just rely on Allah, no stupid mineral crystals, no astrology garbage, no nature worship, no stupid tarot cards, no amulets, no totems, no weird intoxicants that you get in, some sweat lodge or in the Andes Mountains with a shaman or in Ecuador. None of that witch doctor garbage. When you become just focused on your Maker and putting all your hope and acts of worship on this centered focus of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you break free from all these superstitions. And I feel like your true spiritual side becomes unleashed and you get more light in you, more glow. It's something to think about. And when you see some Muslim women who've reached that sort of Islamic enlightenment, there's a peace there. It's not weakness. When I see certain Christian women, I see them as weak and I don't admire them. When I see Muslim women, there's a different type of energy, just alhamdulillah. It's like all praise is due to Allah. There's no bitching and whining and bizarreness and cattiness. It's really just steadfast, reliable energy that you get from Islam. And I hope that you can see that too. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who have this sort of strong soul, and they see Christianity as a feeble and weak and feckless religion. But they've been lied to by the Christians that Muslim women are like these weird doormats that don't have a brain. The difference is that you treat your husband well. You treat your husband well, and you try to be as spiritual as possible, but you don't lose your inner strength. You just know when and where to apply it, and you have more anger management. You're not flying off the handle. And with someone like me who was pretty strong-minded and just more outspoken, Islam gives you this way of correcting your adab, correcting your manners. It's not an easy road. I'm only 3 years in, but I can see the noticeable difference. Where Christian women are kind of muted, and they have that fake LinkedIn smile where, like, they're insulting you behind their eyes while smiling at you, and it's just not really real. That kind of cult Scientology grin type of energy. But unless you meet some of the really old school grandmas, that's a little different. Old school Italian, old school Greek. Then I'd argue that they seem pretty focused on life. But I'm talking about the younger generations, like my age. When I see American reverts to Islam, there's this just special connection you get, because you're like, you've come to the truth, you've come to the way. And when you become a pure monotheist, all the superstitious thorns just fall right off. And it's magnificent. So when people say that Islam treats women bad, you're really just ignoring how there's tons of gangbangers in Mexico, Colombia, El Salvador. Well, a lot of them are locked up now in El Salvador, alhamdulillah. But to pretend that in America there's no abuse except it's only done by Muslims, it's just not true. Allowing women to destroy themselves isn't love, isn't affection. And I think since so many of us were raised, in that single mom mindset, like by single moms or from broken homes, we're unfamiliar with that healthy, masculine, guiding male energy. And so we seem kind of frazzled and split, kind of stretched beyond our means. And we don't really understand what it's like to have a dad who's healthy in both spiritual and moral ethics, and is sober and cares about what kind of men come around you and protects you. Because so many women are on their own, they don't really have any respect for good fathers. So they don't know how to find good husbands, and they don't know how to really pick a good man as well as they could have, because sometimes it's harder for women to really see evil aspects of men the same way men can see it. Just like how there's moms who they can see a bad woman a mile away, even though she's kind of pulled the wool over her son's eyes. That's why so many women fear the mama's boys, because the mom can kind of see what you're up to, and she's not buying your girl code, and she chooses her son over this sort of sisterhood. Not to say that all mother-in-laws are good or evil, but I think when a woman who actually loves her son and she's worried about what kind of woman he gets, she can see an aspect of female nature that he can't see. So when it comes to men, they too can see things that we can't. And that's the beauty of the different genders of male and female. And yeah, there's only two. So just think about what I've said, and don't have so much fear. If you're curious about Islam, study and learn, and really just examine how the American culture, the Western way, has led so many people to ruin. The materialism, the hedonism, the gluttony, the perversion, the music industry, Hollywood, drug culture, gang culture, the finance bro culture as well, like those little wolves of Wall Street, stripper culture, prostitute culture, brothel culture, massage parlor culture, all that. Think about it. Really think about, has that made women's lives better or worse? Really think about what's safer for children. And where has the secular liberal atheist led society? And where will Islam leads society. It's fascinating. Look at the importance of strong men. Don't fear strong men, just learn how to respect them, and you'll be fine. But it's when you try to punk them, dominate them, warp them, is when you fall into trouble. So let me know what you think, because I'll be very curious to see what you have to say. Take care.